Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be going over the 2024 electoral map. Now we're going to be using the polling from 2020 and we're going to average it out with the polling that is for today, and we're going to average both of those out and we're going to see who has the lead in each swing state. As of today, Trump, he is starting to grow a lot more support just because of his post-assassination attempt and his vice president pick after the RNC. So I definitely think Trump's lead in the states are starting to grow, and Joe Biden is not starting to grow. I think he just caught COVID not too long ago, and he also, on the other hand, he has one of the lowest approval ratings of all time. But again, we're not going to factor all that in. We're just going to factor in the 2020 polling, and we're going to average that out with the 2024 polling, and we're going to see which states shift each way, and we're going to see the margin of error for that. Now, as you can see, I already filled in all the safe states for each candidate. The ones in the red are going to be the ones that vote for Trump, and the ones in the blue are going to be the ones that vote for Biden. Now, these are going to be the states that are 10 points or higher. They have voted in the last couple elections, more Democrat, more Republican. All these states have voted very Republican in the last couple elections, and I just don't see any way they're going to shift under 10 points. And same for the blue states. They have voted for Democrat in the last couple elections, and I just don't see any way they're going to shift the other way, 10 or under more points. As you can see, Biden starts off with 85 and Trump starts off with 126 for the safe states of the map. Okay, here we go. We're going to start off the state of Washington with its 12 electoral votes. If we go back to 2020, we can see right before the election, Joe Biden was supposed to win the state by 23 points as of the polling. And if we go over here and click how much he actually won the state by, he only won the state by 19.2 points. You can see he had 58% of the vote, and Donald Trump had 38.8% of the vote. Now, Joe Biden only won, if you add those up, by 19.2% of the vote. And again, if we take the polling, he was supposed to win by 23%. And if you put that with how much he actually won, we see a 3.8% for Trump, like a Trump shift. And if we go back to the map, we can see that Washington, with its 12 electoral votes, if we go to 2024, we can see the most latest poll that comes out of Washington actually is this one, and it has Biden up by 14. Now, if we use that 3.8 shift for Trump, we can see that Biden is only winning the state by 10.2%, making the state of Washington a barely safe state for Joe Biden. Now, if we come down to the state of Oregon with its 8 electoral votes, we can see if we go all the way back to 2020, Joe Biden was supposed to win in the polling. He was winning by 21.3%. Now, if we go over here and actually see how much he actually did, Joe Biden got 56.5% of the vote, Trump got 40.4%. And if you put that together, Biden only won by 16.1% of the vote. Now, if you take that and you average it out with Joe Biden's polling in 2020, we can see that Trump gets a shift of 5.2% in the state. The polling was off 5.2%, meaning Trump gets that shift. And if we come over here and if we go to the latest polls in Oregon in 2024, we can see they're a little bit outdated. But again, Biden was winning by 11 points, even if you factor in Kennedy, which he will be in the race. We can see if we take this latest poll and add that 5.2%, Biden is going to be winning the state by 5.8% of the vote, making the state of Oregon a barely likely state for Joe Biden. And if we come down to the state of Nevada with its 6 electoral votes, this will be a big swing state this year. But again, if we go back and see the 2020 polling, we can see Joe Biden was supposed to win the state by 5.3%. Now, if we come over here to the map of the 2024 electoral map, we can see that Joe Biden has 50.1% of the vote and Trump had 47.7% of the vote. Now, if you average that out, Joe Biden only won the state of Nevada by 2.4% of the vote, and he was supposed to win by 5.3%. So if you subtract that, you get a 2.9% shift for Donald Trump. And if we come over here and see the latest polling in Nevada, we can see Trump is up by 5.7%. Now, if we add that with his 2.9% shift, we can see he wins the state of Nevada by 8.6% of the vote, making the state of Nevada a likely state for Donald Trump. And if we scroll down to the state of Arizona with its 11 electoral votes, we can see in the state of Arizona in 2020, Joe Biden was supposed to win by 2.6%. Now, if we come over here, Arizona was one of the closest swing states in 2020. We can see Joe Biden only won this state by 0.4% of a point. And as you can see, he had 49.4%, and Donald Trump had 49 points exactly. Now, Joe Biden only won the state by 0.4% of the vote. And if we come over to what he was supposed to win, 2.6%, and shift that out, we get a shift for Donald Trump by 2.2%. Now, if we go over here and see what the latest polling in Arizona looks like for 2024, we can see Donald Trump is up by 5.5%. Now, if we give him that 2.2% shift, we can see Trump is going to win the state of Arizona by 7.8%, making it a likely state for him. And our next state is going to be the state of New Mexico with its 5 electoral votes. We can see in 2020, Joe Biden was supposed to win by 11.5%, but he only ended up winning by, 10.3%. He had 54.3 and Donald Trump had 43.5. And if you take Joe Biden's 10.3 lead and you add it with his 11.5 lead that he was supposed to win, we see a shift of 0.9% of a shift for Donald Trump, barely under a point. Now, if we go over here to the latest polling in New Mexico for 2024 and take the latest polling, we can see Biden has 43%, Trump has 42%, and Biden leads by 1, even if you factor in Kennedy. Now, even though Biden is leading by 1, this state will be very close this year. If we take that Donald Trump shift of 0.9% of a point, we can see that Joe Biden still wins the state by 0.1% of a point, barely winning the state, making it the closest state probably on this map in the tilt margin for Joe Biden. And if we scroll up to the state of Colorado with its 10 electoral votes, we can see in the state of Colorado, if we go to the 2024 polling, we can see Joe Biden was supposed to win by 12.5%. Now, he only ended up winning the state by 13.5%. So that actually shows that Joe Biden had a 1% shift in the state. Now, if we go over here and go to the latest polling in Colorado, we can see Joe Biden is up by 10%. Now, if you factor in Joe Biden's 1% shift in the state, I am going to take this poll down here just because it includes Kennedy and he will be in the race. So we are going to take this poll, Biden up by 6. But again, if you factor in Joe Biden's 1 point shift, that actually makes Joe Biden up to 7 points. And that gives the state of Colorado a likely swing for Joe Biden. And if we scroll down to the state of Texas with its 40 electoral votes, the next biggest state in the electoral map, we can see in 2020, Donald Trump was supposed to win the state by 1.3% over Joe Biden. And if we go to Texas, he actually ended up winning the state by 5.6%, making the polling underestimate him by 4.5%. And that will go to a shift for Donald Trump. Now, if we go over to the 2024 updated polling, we can see Donald Trump is killing it in this state. He is up by 8.2%. And if you add that 4.5% shift for Donald, we can see he does win the state of Texas by 12.7%, making the state of Texas a safe state for Donald Trump. And if we scroll over to the state of Georgia, one of the closest swing states in the 2020 election, I think it was the closest swing state, with its 16 electoral votes, we can see in 2020, it was supposed to go to Joe Biden by 1.2%. Now, it only went to Joe Biden by 0.3%. And if you factor all that in, Donald Trump gets a shift by a 0.9%, barely under a point. Now, if we go to Georgia's 2024 polling, we can see Donald Trump is up by 5.9%. And as you can see, if you factor in that barely under a point, 0.9%, Donald Trump gets a lead of 6.8% in the state of Georgia, making the state a likely win for him. And if we scroll down to the state of Florida, with its 30 electoral votes, the third biggest state in the United States for the electoral map, Joe Biden was supposed to win the state by 2.5%. Now, he only ended up winning the state by 3.3%, making a shift for Donald Trump 5.5%. Now, if you go over to the updated 2024 polling for Florida, we can see just like Texas, Donald Trump is leading in the state by 8.5 points. And now, if you factor in that shift for him, that brings him all the way up to 14.1%, making the state of Florida a safe state for Donald Trump. Now, if we go a little ways up to North Carolina, just like Georgia, it has 16 electoral votes, and we can see Donald Trump has won this state twice in 2016 and 2020, so this state does show a lot of support for him. Now, if we go over here in 2020, we can see the state of North Carolina. Joe Biden was supposed to win the state by 1.9%. Now, Donald Trump did end up winning the state. He ended up winning it by 1.3%. So if you take that 1.3% and you factor it into Joe Biden's lead, you get a lead of 3.1% for Donald Trump. Now, if we go over here and click on the updated polling for him this year, we can see the state of North Carolina, Donald Trump is killing it right now with a 6.9 lead. And if you factor in that 3.1% shift from 2020, you get exactly on the dot 10% lead for Donald Trump, making it the closest safe state. Now, if we scroll up to the state of Virginia with its 13 electoral votes, we can go over here and go to the state of Virginia. We can see that in Virginia in 2020, Joe Biden was supposed to win by 11.8%. Now, he only ended up winning by 10.1%, as you can see. And if you take all that and factor it in, Donald Trump gets a shift in the state of Virginia by 1.7%. And if you go over here and click on the updated polling, we can see Joe Biden is in the lead by 1.5%. Now, if you factor in that shift, it is 1.7. That means Trump flips the state and he starts to win the state by 0.2%, making this the closest tilt state for Donald Trump on the map. Now, if we go a little ways up and go to the state of Ohio with its 17 electoral votes, Donald Trump has won this state twice. He did just pick J.D. Vance, which is from Ohio, and I think that will secure his lead even more. Now, if we go to Ohio and see what his lead was in 2020, we can see Donald Trump was supposed to win by 0.8%. Now, he only ended up winning the state by 8.1%. And as you can see, if you factor that in, Donald Trump got a shift in the state by 7.3%, making him going to win this state by 16.6% in 2024. Now, if we come a little ways over, we can see Illinois with its 19 electoral votes. This state is heavy Democrat. It has voted Democrat for the last couple elections. I forgot the last time it went Republican, maybe Bush or around Clinton's era. I don't know, but I think it has been voting Democrat for a second now. And as you can see, Joe Biden in 2020 was supposed to win the state by 16 points, and he ended up winning the state by 16.9%, giving Joe Biden actually a 0.9% shift in the state. Now, if we go over to the latest polling, again, Illinois has some very bad polling. They haven't polled since October of last year. Kennedy did a poll, but again, that's against Kennedy. I'm not really worried about that. Now, if we take the one from last year in October, we can see Biden is up by 10%. And if you add that 0.9% for Biden, that comes out to be around almost a little under 11 points for Joe Biden, making it a safe state for him. Now, if we go a little ways up, we can see we have the state of Iowa with its 6 electoral votes. We can see in 2020, Donald Trump was supposed to win the state of Iowa by 1.3%, and he actually ended up killing it. He actually ended up winning the state by 8.2%. Now, if you factor in the shift, that gives Donald Trump a shift of 6.6% in the state of Iowa. And if you go click on the latest polling, you can see Iowa actually has Donald Trump up by 12. And if you add that 6.6% shift, that gives the state of Iowa a 18.6% lead for Donald Trump, making it very safe. And if we go up to the state of Minnesota with its 10 electoral votes, we can see in the state of Minnesota, it hasn't voted Republican since like 1970s. I'm pretty sure it's been quite some time. It's the longest lasting Democrat state in the nation. But as you can see, Donald Trump might flip the state this year. The polling's actually really good. As you can see in 2020, Minnesota was supposed to go 9.2% for Joe Biden, and he actually ended up winning the state by 7.1%. so a little under what they were polling. And that gives Donald Trump a 2.1% shift in the state of Minnesota. And if we go over here and click on the latest polling, we can see Joe Biden actually is tied even with Donald Trump. And if you give him that 2.1% shift, that actually makes Donald Trump actually have a lean margin for Minnesota with a 2.1% victory in the state. And if we scroll over to the state of Wisconsin with its 10 electoral votes, we can see in this state, Donald Trump was supposed to, I'm pretty sure he's supposed to lose, to Joe Biden by 8.4% in 2020. And he only ended up winning the state by very close. I think it was the third closest state, in 2020. And we can see Donald Trump only lost to the state by 0.6% to Joe Biden in 2020. And if we come over here, we can see Joe Biden was up by 8.4. Now, if we go to the latest polling, we can see Donald Trump is up by 2.4. Now, he did get a giant shift in the state of Wisconsin, 7.8%. And if you factor that in with the polling that he is winning right now, you get a 10.2% shift, a 10.2 win for Donald Trump in the state of Wisconsin. And if we scroll over to the state of Michigan, Michigan is a big key battleground state for this election. But as you can see with its 15 electoral votes, Donald Trump was supposed to lose the state by 7.9% in 2020. And he only lost, I'm pretty sure, by 2.8% to Joe Biden. That was a very close loss. And Donald Trump got a shift of a 5.1% in the state. And if you go over here and click on the latest polling for Michigan, we can see Trump is up by 2.2%. And if you factor in that shift he had, that gives him a lead of a 7.3% shift in the state of Michigan, making it a likely state for him. And if we scroll over to Pennsylvania, this is another key battleground state for this election with its 19 electoral votes. We can see in 2020, Biden was supposed to win the state by 4.7%, and he only ended up winning the state by 1.2%, giving Donald Trump a 3.5% shift in the state. And if you apply that to the latest polling in Pennsylvania, Donald Trump is up by 4.4. And if you apply that, you get a 7.9% win for Donald Trump in the state of Pennsylvania, making it a likely state. And if we scroll down to the state of Delaware, Joe Biden's home state, we can see this state, if we add its 2020 polling, is becoming very, very close. In 2020, Joe Biden was supposed to win the state by 24.3, but he only ended up winning the state by 18.9%, giving Donald Trump a 5.4% shift in the state. Now, if we go over here to 2024, we can see we don't really have any new polling, but we're just going to have to go with the Kennedy polling. We can see Joe Biden had 46% and Donald Trump had 36%, making Joe Biden have a 10% lead over Donald Trump. And if you factor in that 5.4 shift, that gives Joe Biden a win of 4.6% in his home state of Delaware, making it not a likely, but a lean state for him. And if we scroll over to the state of New Jersey, we can see this state is usually a key Democrat state with its 14 electoral votes. But as you can see, this state is starting to become a pretty good battleground state for the 2024 election. As you can see in the most latest polling, Donald Trump is up by 1. But if we go back to 2020, we can see Joe Biden was supposed to win by 20.4%. And he only ended up winning the state by 15.8%. That gives Donald Trump a 4.6% shift in this state. And if we go to the latest polling, we can see if we take the latest one, Trump is up by 1. And if we add that, that gives the state of New Jersey a likely win for Donald Trump by 5.6%. And if we go over to the state of New York with its 28 electoral votes is becoming a key battleground state, honestly, for the 2024 election. If we go over here, we can see in the state of New York, the most latest polling only has Joe Biden up by 9%, which is crazy because in 2020, he was supposed to win by 29.4%. Now, he only ended up winning the state by 23.2%, which is still a huge margin, but that does give Donald Trump a 6.2% shift in the state. Now, if we come over here and apply that to the 2024 polling, if it's anything like 2024, Joe Biden is up by 9, and if we give that 6.2 shift for Donald Trump, Joe Biden is only winning the state of New York by 2.8%, making it a lean for Joe Biden. Now, if we scroll over to Connecticut and Rhode Island are very surprising. Now, if we go over to Connecticut, we can see in 2020, he was supposed to win it by 26.3 points. Now, he only ended up winning Connecticut by 20.1 points, which gave Donald Trump a 6.2% shift in the state. Now, if we go over here and click on the latest polling, we can see that the latest polling in Connecticut actually has Joe Biden up by 9. Now, if you add that shift for Donald Trump, Joe Biden is only winning the state of Connecticut by 2.8%, just like New York, making it a lean state for Joe Biden. Now, if you come over to the state of Rhode Island, we can see in the state of Rhode Island in 2020, Joe Biden was supposed to win this state by 30.6%, which is a huge margin that he blew Donald Trump out of the water. But if you click on the polling, he only beat Donald Trump by 20.8%, giving Donald Trump almost a 10% shift, a 9.8%. Now, if you come over here and click on the latest polling for Rhode Island, we can see that Donald Trump and Joe Biden is winning by 7 points if you factor in Kennedy, which he'll be in the race. But if you include that 9.8% shift for Donald Trump, that gives Donald Trump the win in Rhode Island with a 2.8% lead, making it a lean state for him, which is crazy because the last time Rhode Island has gone Democrat, again, has been a while. If Donald Trump pulls off this state, that will be an incredible upset. Now we're getting down to our last couple of states. We can see in the state of New Hampshire, this state voted for Joe Biden, or the polls were voting for Joe Biden by 11.1% right before the election in 2020. But as you can see, he only ended up winning the state by 7.3%, giving Donald Trump a 3.2 or 3.8% shift in the state. New Hampshire is interesting because the last poll that came out shows Donald Trump up by 2 if you factor in Kennedy, giving Kennedy taking more of Joe Biden's votes. Now, if we take the latest poll where Donald Trump is up and add that 3.8% shift, that gives Donald Trump a 5.8% chance, that gives Donald Trump a 5.8% lead in the state of New Hampshire, making it a likely state for him. Now, in the state of Maine, Maine's very interesting. We're going to take the general overall election vote, and we're also going to break down the first district. Now, the second district has gone to Donald Trump the last 2 elections, so I'm not even worried about that one. That's going to go to Donald Trump, especially this year. Now, we're going to go to the state of Maine. As you can see in the state of Maine, let me find it right here. We can see I don't have any way to poll the first district, but if we take the latest poll out of the first district, you can see Joe Biden is up by 8. Now, he did win the state of Maine at large by 9.1%. Now, in 2020, he was supposed to win the state at large by 13%, giving Donald Trump a 3.9% shift in the state. And as you can see with the latest polling, Biden up by 2. That gives Donald Trump a 1.9% lead in the state of Maine. So we are going to give the first district to Joe Biden by a likely, but we're going to give the overall general election in the state of Maine to Donald Trump by a tilt margin. Now we're going to come down to Nebraska with its second district. This is usually more of a heavy leaning Democrat district. Now, again, I can't see how big he won the district in 2020, so we're just going to take the latest poll coming out, and as you can see in the second district, it shows Joe Biden and Donald Trump tied. Now, since it is tied, I'm just going to go down and try to find the latest poll. You can see Joe Biden is up by 5, so we will give this state to Joe Biden by, I'll say, a tilt margin, just because it's even in tied in one thing. So as you can see, this is the final results of the 2024 polling. If you add it with the current polling of today, each state has different swing. We can see Oregon is starting to go more Republican. We can see all the critical swing states are starting to go even more Republican, especially a few up here by Rhode Island and New Hampshire. New York is becoming closer. New Mexico is coming closer. Donald Trump has completely flipped the state of Virginia and even Minnesota. Now, as you can see, Donald Trump has a lead of 359 and Joe Biden has a 179 point, making Donald Trump the next 2024 president in a landslide.